particular fight, sir.
What do we need to do to protect ourselves from a similar type of raid by an adversary?
Well, sir, intelligence is critical. Human intelligence, signals intelligence, every aspect of how we get ahead, get to the left of a problem like that. And certainly our department in conjunction interagency are focused on that. But then it's rapidly fielding the commercially available technologies in some cases, but others proprietary, whether they're EW, whether they're microwave, whether they're kinetic, to defeat drones either individually or in swarms in multiple locations against, protecting our people, protecting our installations, protecting our critical infrastructure, protecting our bombers. And some of that speaks to Golden Dome and what we'll do there, but you also have the particulars of the immediate. Our forward deployed troops, are they properly covered by counter-UAS systems? Do we have the best systems forward deployed? And that's something we're looking at every single day. We live in a dynamic operating environment, and the chairman knows this, the deputy, our policy shop, we are focused on ensuring that this is front and center, considering how central this threat will be going forward.
Well, these are low-cost, high-tech weapons, if you will, and has been dominated by China. 90% of drones are produced by China, I'm told. What does that tell us about what we need to do here at home?
Well, sir, it's not just, first of all, making sure we're less reliant on Chinese technology in any part of the supply chain, which is something we can speak to because that's been an aggressive part of our effort at DoD. But also recognizing it's not just China. Of course, Iran invests substantially in drone capabilities. And then learning a lot from partners on our side, like the Ukrainians who have developed systems and fielding that quickly. So commercially available, attritable, that we can produce at home is important to us.
Congratulations to all three of you, and we wish you well. I yield back.
Thank you, sir.
Thank the gentleman for the question. Real quickly, is it the press stories accurate that 40% of the long-range bombers from Russia were destroyed in that attack? Is that an accurate number?
So I'm not exactly sure what the percentage is, but I also know that I may not say that in open session. So I'll take that and get back to you through appropriate channels.
Thank you, gentlemen. Ms. Capter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We welcome our guests. I come from a family of combat veterans going back a long time. And my comment is the use of certain words and what they imply. When I hear warrior ethos, and I hear it a lot from you, Mr. Secretary, I'm concerned. All the soldiers in our family, all of whom fought and received medals for their combat service, call themselves soldiers. Marines are trained to kill. In terms of domestic policing, our police and our National Guard at the state level, carefully used, but also our state police are used in civil enforcement, and they are good. I don't need any reply. I just am concerned about what those words you often utter actually do in people's minds and change the language we have used since the founding of this republic. So that is a concern of mine. I wanted to go to the General and Chairman, if I could. We've heard a lot this morning about Defense Industrial Base. And this is something I ran for office on a long time ago. We have not made significant progress as a country in this regard. And the places that made things, whether they were machine tools, whether it was composite materials, were left behind. It's one of the reasons for the division in our society. So I am very interested in knowing what specifically and in which accounts, and I hope you can get this back to us within a week and a half, you are going to focus on in order to inject additional resources in the defense industrial base of this country. What will that look like? We are just successful now in helping steel to revive in some of our composite metals. 40 years ago, I wrote a title to the defense bill dealing with strategic metals. Nobody at Department of Defense cared, okay? So I'm interested in which accounts, if you could kindly get back to me on that, and when you say defense industrial base, budget-wise, in which accounts, what does that mean? All right, I don't expect you to answer it now. Can you tell me when you might get that information back to us?
Well, ma'am, you just said a week and a half, so I know the awesome humans behind me are scribbling madly to come back to that. Can I just make a quick comment? You know, I happen to be a lucky guy that served in the private sector for a while, and I ran a machine shop in Texas along with a metal finishing business. So when we talk about defense industrial base, I broaden that out to really the national industrial base. There are certain components that are made in the defense side, but as you articulate, ma'am, many others are made in the small machine shops out around this entire nation. When I talk about mobilizing our nation, I think of that national, not just defense industrial base. What do we have to do to create greater capacity all the way down the chain to include jobs at the local level for those people that build quality parts and deliver on time with shorter lead time and lower cost? And so I have great empathy for what you're talking about, and we'll get back to you just as soon as we can.
Yes, and General and Secretary, going back to the drone attack in Ukraine, a country that was invaded by the Russian dictatorship, starting in 2014. They've been at war for a decade, more than a decade. What they've done with drones is astounding. It's going to change warfare. One of my questions is, what are you doing to establish relations with Ukraine and not turn your back on them as an administration and help them win, help liberty win? This has implications way beyond the boundaries of Ukraine. Russia's got 11 time zones. I mean, this is the most important test of liberty for our NATO alliance in my lifetime, and we better help win. And that involves moving forward faster on drone technology. I'm very worried about our air bases where we have secure assets. Mr. Secretary, can we defend them today if they were to have a similar attack?
We're certainly very focused on that, ma'am. And we're learning every day from Ukraine. I think we would need to clarify what win means. This president is committed to peace. He's committed to stopping the killing. And he was not in office when it started in 2014. There were no additional incursions in his first term. And then under the previous administration, Vladimir Putin sought to take Ukraine. We're committed. This administration's committed to peace, to stopping the killing, and we think that serves
Did you just
American
leave
interests.
Ukraine, Mr. Secretary? Did you just leave Ukraine?
Young lady's time's expired, but if you can get
I did
back
not leave
to
Ukraine.
us on that.
No,
Have you visited Ukraine?
No, ma'am.
My first trip
No.
there, sir, was
Young lady's
1973. I yield
time
back.
has expired. Mr. Carter, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
For your service to our country. We're very proud of you. I'm fully supportive of the Army's outgoing modernization efforts and the recent Army Transformation Initiative that combined the Army's Future Command with TRADOC to become the Transformational and Training Command. How are you both going to create a partnership between the Assistant Secretary of the Army for Acquisition, Logistics, and Technology, and this new command to ensure the acquisition authorities are modernized and synchronized to achieve the maximum lethality and deterrence?
I'll take that. Maybe I'll hand it to you, Mr. Chairman, as well. We are very encouraged and supportive of the Army's transformation initiative. General George has been critical to that, as has the Secretary of the Army, Dan Driscoll. And together, it's been a heck of a partnership and a willingness to get at the core issues facing today's Army and ensuring it is reformed and modernized to meet the threats of the future. One of those aspects is merging those commands. And I can tell you, whether it's the warrior ethos or lethality, that is central to why we make decisions. Ensuring that we're not making decisions on behalf of bureaucrats or process, but to ensure we're getting the most lethal aspects of what we do front and forward as quickly as possible. And that involves things like Futures Command and TRADOC. And when you merge those things, you have to make sure you're getting rid of things that are redundant and pushing forward things that matter the most. But I'll defer to the chairman.
Well, I've shared that commitment completely, and I share this transformation. What do you see as the fundamental capabilities of this command must develop to ensure that we have the lethality and deterrence necessary to succeed in Indo-PACOM? That's where the future is.
Sure, I'll first echo the Secretary's respect and appreciation for Secretary Driscoll and General George. They are a team, and that's always great to see from a warfighter's perspective when you have such a nested combat pair, if you will, that are driving at the same set of objectives. I think there's clarity, Congressman, in the minds of both the Secretary and the Chief on the need for things like long-range fires in the Pacific. And in order to pay for those, they're making those difficult decisions down the Army Transformation Initiative in order to pay for them.
Well, when we started talking about the Futures Command, one of the things that I was hoping we would do is we would not get a project stacked up on somebody's desk and stacked that high, and when he got down to checking on that, oh, that goes to you, and it goes on top of another, on the bottom of another stack that high. And so we get delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed in certain areas of bureaucracy. I think that is dangerous for our country as we look forward in Indo-PACOM.
Yes,
and that's
sir.
why I asked the question. Another issue that's very important, the department has historically relied on outdated production techniques of energetic manufacturing, which may have remained unchanged since the Second World War. How is the department ensuring that investment in next generation energetics manufacturing, such as AI, machine learning capabilities, and enabling and assurance of quality assurance, robotic-driven load, assembly, and pack, and automated formation processes, a prioritized and transitioned out research and development that is capable of producing these pathways. In other words, a modern way to load and turn out ammunition in the simplest terms.
We're robustly funding things like DIU, like SCO, like the Office of Strategic Capital, to ensure that commercially available options, other companies are able to compete that traditionally are not involved in procurement at the Defense Department, so that the valley of death is eliminated, and you're able to bring in actual competition and dynamic solutions. Otherwise, ammunition's a great example. It's very antiquated in many cases. We're still making rounds the way we made them after World War II. You have to project out what you want to make, send that signal to industry, and then allow innovators to enter that space so they can bring new technology and rapidly field those new technologies. Otherwise, you're stuck doing it the same way you've always done it.
Sir, I was going to add some, but I'll hold off if you're going to roll.
You can get a written response to the
Yes, sir.
gentleman from Texas on that. That's a concern to all of ours, is to modernize our manufacturing capability for we can get back manufacturing to the United States. Well, Mr. Cuellar, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, and all three of you all, welcome and thank you for your service. I represent an area from San Antonio all the way to Laredo, the border. In San Antonio, we got Joint Base San Antonio, the largest joint base in the Department of Defense that contributes over $151 billion to the Texas economy. We support 266 mission partners. San Antonio also has the second largest cyber footprint in the nation, hosting the 16th Air Force cyber. And then, of course, the military facilities that are the best in the country also. Along with that, going down to Laredo, the largest port in the country, 9th largest in the world after 8 Chinese ports. Number 9 in the world is Laredo. And my question, Mr. Secretary, has to do with one of your plans, and ask you to, welcome you to San Antonio, let the San Antonio folks come in. It has to do with Army, U.S. Army North and U.S. Army South. I'm not going to go with their missions or critical mission, but what concerns us in San Antonio, both the Democrats and Republican members of Congress and senators, we're concerned that, in setting up a Western Hemisphere Command, which I think it's a good idea, that you move it away from a place like San Antonio, where, we have the infrastructure, the personnel, the community partnerships to work with you on this. And I say this because I think your testimony has about 11,900 troops that are down there working with the Homeland, which I support. And keeping in mind what's happening with the cartels in Mexico and other places, I would ask you to, when you look at this Western Hemisphere Command, that you don't move it 1,500 miles away from the border, especially in a place like San Antonio. I think we got a few Texans here that can talk about the rest of the state of Texas, and some wannabe Texans also that can talk about what the facilities we have. But I would ask you to, as you consider this, to keep the command, Western Hemisphere Command in San Antonio.
Well, sir, I'd count me amongst some of the wannabe Texans. Tennessee's close enough.
Hey, we got no state income tax. Keep that.
It's true. I appreciate that concern. It is something that has come up multiple times in conversations with Secretary Driscoll and General George in reviewing their Army modernization plan and consolidation, with the recognition that some of those changes, when we go through a posture review and as we're looking at commands, are going to include some tough choices. Some of that includes ranks and positioning, but you still are going to have, at some level, a south and north bifurcation. The question is where that is headquartered, and we are in an ongoing review on that, of exactly where that will shake out. But I would encourage continue deliberation with Secretary Driscoll. They have been thoughtful about it and will continue to be.
And I understand that there's decisions that have to be made, efficiencies and all that, but just ask you, as you look at that, if we're doing so much investment on the border,
yeah,
we already got the infrastructure down there in San Antonio and all the support from the other military bases across the state of Texas and the partnership, I would ask you and the Secretary to, to please, before you make a decision, go drink the water, go, feel what we have in San Antonio and the surrounding areas in Texas, to consider that instead of just making a decision by the paper on that. And certainly ask you to consider also the second largest footprint that we have at cyber there in San Antonio, and working with a top cyber university, UTSA there. And of course, the military facilities that we have, which are in the best. And certainly during the Afghanistan and Iraq war, that area was looked. So I just ask that before any decisions were made, consider making a trip to San Antonio and have your folks understand. I know some of y'all have been in Texas before, and would ask you to look at that. So with that, Mr. Secretary, and all of y'all, thank you for your service.
Well, noted, sir, and thank you for your contributions to securing the border, which has been a huge priority for President Trump. We're going to get 100% operational control, and it's because of support from folks like you. Thank you.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Chairman Womack.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and my thanks to the to our witnesses here today. Secretary Hegseth, General Caine, thank you from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of this committee for your service to our nation. Obviously, we face a number of challenges and pacing threats across the globe in all domains, and we have to ensure that the joint force is ready to fight and win our nation's wars. So let me begin with General Caine. What risks do the recent force structure changes or proposals in the Army and Marine Corps present to the joint force given your global force integration responsibility. Can you speak to that for a minute?
Yes, sir. And I'll be mindful of the environment that we're in and speak broadly, and thank you for the question. You know, we are having to make some difficult choices to pivot some of the combat capability that we have now to the combat capability that we need in the future. Both services, alongside the Department of the Navy and the Department of the Army, are making those changes in order to provide us with the combat capability and capacity that we need at scale to create the dilemmas that we have to deliver for the joint force and our adversaries. So at this point, you know, we're doing the right pivots, Congressman, to make sure that we have the right depth that we need.
Secretary Hegseth, both of you understand the unique value proposition that the National Guard provides the joint force, having served. And gosh, for a long time it was just me and Hal Rogers up here as the Guard guys. So it's good to have some company. As we're looking to be efficient with federal dollars, I always kind of believe that the Guard and the reserve component structure in general brought what I called value to the force. That, you know, I realize it's probably not at the same level of proficiency that the active duty counterparts might have, but they bring value to the force. And when we need to surge responsibly and quickly, then the Guard and Reserve are certainly at the ready to do that. My question is pretty simple. Can you both commit to ensuring that the National Guard component is resourced and equipped properly to meet not only today's operational demands, but those in the future? And I ask this question having had experience back in the day when the National Guard was more or less a reserve force, and it was only after 9/11 that we began to use the National Guard in a truly operational form. And I thought it did a lot of great things for the Guard. I thought it brought value to the force, and I worry sometimes that we may, you know, pivot back to the time when the National Guard is relegated to more of a reserve structure rather than able to surge with our forces in a moment's need and be able to deliver combat capability and combat service support capability when needed. Can you speak to that, Secretary?
Sir, I think it's an excellent point. It does, the National Guard and Reserves bring great value, not to mention the civilian skills, the additive civilian skills that they bring. Completely recognize the shift that happened after 9/11. I was a part of that, as were many people in the Guard of our generation. I think we're entering an even another phase, especially under President Trump with his focus on the homeland, where the National Guard and Reserves become a critical component of how we secure that homeland and apply those civilian sets across the spectrum. So when you're looking at, say, the Army, for example, what we need in the active Army vis-a-vis the National Guard will not be a reflection of what we need or don't need. It will be a right sizing of where that particular application would be best used. And the National Guard is a huge component of how we see the future, sir.
General Caine.
Sir, you know, the policy makers tell us what size our force should be. What I will commit to you, and by the way, thank you both for your service in the Guard. As a fellow Guardsman, you're legendary in those hallways. What I will commit to you is that I'll make sure that the voice of the Guard is heard at the policy level, pursuant to my job as a chairman.
I yield, Mr. Chairman.
I thank the gentleman. Mr. Case.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Secretary, at the Shangri-La Dialogue in your speech of May 31st, you stated, and I quote, "Here in the Indo-Pacific, our futures are bound together. The prosperity and security of the Indo-Pacific are linked to those of your people." You went on to talk about the benefits from the, quote, "peace and stability that comes with a lasting and strong American presence here in the Indo-Pacific," end quote. Do you believe that the only way to achieve our contributions to peace and security and stability in the Indo-Pacific is through military strength alone?
Sir, certainly not through military strength alone, although military strength is the business that we're in. So we're building partnerships across mill to mill, whether it's the Philippines, Japan, Australia, more actively than any other part of the world, because the application of American strength is not America alone. It's by, with, and through partners who share mutual objectives. And so
Okay,
we
so
are
you-
very invested in military to military
So
relationships.
you, as the Secretary of Defense, believe that we need to take a broader approach in the projection of national power, national influence than simply our military. Is that correct?
Well, sir, that's not my job. My job is the military application. So
Yes, but-
others will determine the broader spectrum of that, but it's always useful to have other applications of
Okay.
power as well.
But how others actually do that does impact your job in running our military, right? I mean, your military operations, your military presence, your mill-to-mill relationships that I agree are important, are all going to be impacted by our non-military projection of power, influence, and assistance throughout the Indo-Pacific. Is that correct?
I would just say that from my 2 recent visits to that region, meeting with many of those ministers of defense multiple times, their focus is what capabilities can we share together, interoperability and capabilities that establish deterrence, because the most important message America can still send, and they can still send, is hard power capabilities. What can we project? Where can we project it? As the chairman said, what dilemmas can we create? That's the business that we're in. And so we work with those partners that share common goals. And our militaries are working better together than they ever have. And I think
I
that helps
appreciate your
support
focus
security.
on the military side. That's obviously directly your job, but I'm asking you to think and comment more broadly on our big picture approach to the world. This administration, for example, has proposed to reduce the State Department by $8.3 billion, the Economic Support Fund, the Development Assistance and Democracy Fund, and the Assistance for Eurasia. This administration has illegally sought to destroy the U.S. Agency for International Development, and in its budget request, reduce it significantly down to close to zero. This administration has proposed to reduce the international narcotics control and law enforcement effort by $1.2 billion. This administration has proposed to eliminate the Millennium Challenge Corporation, or not eliminate it, but reduce it by $1 billion, a significant reduction. One of our principal agencies that assists us with meeting the needs of the Indo-Pacific in the infrastructure area, and what I think you would agree are key strategic countries such as Indonesia, such as Kiribati, such as the Philippines, such as the Solomon Islands. This administration has proposed to reduce international organization contributions by 83%. This administration is not following through on commitments that we made to the freely associated states, all of which are strategically critical to this country, to expand veteran services in those 3 countries, Palau, the Federated States of Micronesia, and the Marshall Islands. This administration appears to be slow walking the resurgence and expansion of the Peace Corps throughout the Indo-Pacific. Do you think that that will affect your job in the military space with your relationships with those countries?
No, sir. I would add to that list the elimination of most USAID programs, which I don't hear anything about because a lot of them were wasteful and duplicitous, and I'm glad we got rid of them.
Well, I've had those
and
conversations
as far as
with those
you mentioned
countries.
international organizations, the 83% reduction. Again, I hear nothing about that because
Have
most
you
of those
talked to those
international
countries?
organizations are not serving U.S. interests,
Mr.
and so we shouldn't
Secretary,
be
have you
funding them
talked to
if they're
those
not
countries
serving
about
U.S.
the
interests.
impact?
So I don't hear from our allies problems about that.
Well, I
because
don't think you're talking to the
those
right
were not
people.
part of their calculus
Yeah,
of American
if you
power.
talk to any one of those countries, they'll tell you that they're deeply concerned with the reduction of non-defense dollars, and it will in fact influence our presence and our contribution to your stated goal of peace and stability and
I think they
security
respect
in
that
the
we're
Indo-Pacific.
reducing waste on programs that aren't actually affecting
Gentleman,
change
time
on the
has
ground.
expired. Mr. Diaz-Ballard.
Thank you, and to 3 of you, thank you. Thanks for being here, and thanks for your service. Mr. Secretary, I have 2 questions. First one is, and you mentioned recruitment at the beginning. During the last 4 years, we got used to just hearing how the recruitment was not doing well, and it was just the new reality. And then all of a sudden, that reality has changed. If you can comment on why that reality? I think a lot of us know. But if you could talk to us a little bit about this new reality, which you don't hear much about in the press, about how that has changed dramatically. Question number one. Question number two is, a number of years ago, Southcom was moved from Panama to South Florida. There's a lot of reasons for that move. It was to get it because it was in close proximity with others like GIF South, Special Operations Command South and Homestead, Joint Task Force Guantanamo, the Joint Task Force Bravo in Honduras, the U.S. Coast Guard 7th District, which is the busiest district in the entire country, but also because in South Florida you have this multicultural, multilingual community, and as you know, Southcom deals with multiple countries, 40 different languages, and so it was not just a cost savings potentially, but it was also made a lot of sense. I believe that continues to be the case. Nothing has changed. If anything, what's changed is that the Western Hemisphere has gotten a lot more dangerous. And obviously we have Iranian influence, Russian influence, Chinese influence. I'm very grateful, Mr. Secretary, I don't know how much you had to do with that, of the President's change in attitude on no longer appeasing enemies of the United States in the Southern Hemisphere, whether it's Venezuela or Cuba. But again, there goes the importance of having Southcom where it is. And I just would like your thoughts, if you've had an opportunity to look at that, because it was moved from Panama. It just wasn't in South Florida for the heck of it. It was a decision made. It was the right decision. It's proven to be the right decision. So 2 questions, if you can answer them, I'd love to hear it.
Well, sir, thank you for the question about recruiting. What changed is a commander-in-chief that America's young people believe in. President Trump was elected in November, inaugurated in January, and at first I called it the Trump bump, but then it became clear that's not enough. This is a tsunami of support amongst young Americans who want to serve under a president who they know has their back, who will fund them properly, who will not use them unnecessarily, and will make sure they are part of deterrence for the country with a focus, first and foremost, on the homeland, then deterring strengths and making sure our allies step up and carry more of the burden. So you've got a historic surge in the Army, and Marine Corps, Navy, Air Force, you name it. Americans are responding because the president says a new spirit, and he's right, and you can feel it in the ranks. You go out to formations, you talk to men and women on the border, they believe in what they're doing in securing that southern border. You talk to them across the world, they're enthused about this new administration and its leadership. So it's President Trump, sir. And then as far as Southcom, it is President Trump's focus on our hemisphere has in many ways reinvigorated the mission of Southcom and the recognition of securing American interests, but also pushing back Chinese malign influence. Panama is a great example of that, but across Central and South America. So Southcom is right where it is. We're grateful for the great work that they do. I've had an opportunity to spend a lot of time with them and their commander, and we work by with and through a lot of allies.
Mr. Secretary, I'm a little confused. Are you telling me that the folks that are now voting with their commitment to the country are not upset that they're not able to use different pronouns? Is that not a priority for the folks that are now signing up for our military?
Well, sir, if they wanted to get a woke indoctrination, they could just go to college. Instead, they're joining the military, where we're focused on the basics. We know men are men, women are women, standards will be high, and we're getting rid of the distractions, the ideologies, the politicization that was in our ranks so that soldiers, men and women, can do their jobs on behalf of the nation. I think that's all that American people, all the people who want to serve want, is that clarity and that support, and President Trump is giving it.
Well, Mr. Secretary, I would also add that I think having you there has made it very clear what the attitude is. And I will tell you, to me, it's really, really refreshing, and I thank you all.